Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is a companion video. What are companion videos? Well, I'm awfully glad that you asked. See, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday, we take the second half of the show to take your live comments and questions. However, we usually don't have enough time to get through all the comments and questions that get sent in. But I want to make sure if you sent in those questions and you supported this channel, that you don't have to wait too awful long to hear those questions answered. So what I do is I gather them up and we address them here on companion videos. And fortunately for me, I'm not alone today. Kimberly Curran is here. Kimberly, welcome back. How you doing?
Hey, very good, very good.
What were you doing this weekend? You were doing like domestic stuff this weekend, right? I was
totally getting my like Kim the Tool woman. Taylor, I was at Home Depot doing a lot of projects in the garage, spray painting, moving stuff around.
It's always good to be productive.
It is.
Always good to be productive. And listen, guys, we're going to be productive now, getting through a lot of the questions you guys sent in. So let's not waste any time and get right to it. Kimberly, what is up first?
This is coming from Brian Walmer. He says, "Hey, John, two things. I just read a rumor that Jennifer Lawrence is possibly being cast as Sue Storm for Fantastic Four. Do you think there's truth to it? Or is it just here to say by the fact that she's heading to a filming location of the film that this rumor began?"
All right, so we actually talked about this on the John Campea Show earlier today. There's no truth to that rumor whatsoever. Number one, she's not flying to Australia right now to start filming Fantastic Four. They haven't even picked the writers yet. So they still have to pick writers, and then they need a number of months to pick writers. The director of Fantastic Four, John Watts, is still filming Spider-Man 3. And then once he's done that, he's got months of post-production work to do on it. So no, there's absolutely no... And listen, I said before, Jennifer Lawrence, 4-time Academy Award nominee, 1-time Academy Award winning actress. She's phenomenal, although she tends to lose interest in a franchise after the first film, aka the X-Men films. So I'm not sure how I would feel about her getting cast in that. She's world class, but she sometimes doesn't care after the first movie. At any rate, there is no truth to the rumor whatsoever. We can move on from it. All right, what's next?
This is also coming from Brian Walmer. "Hey, John, one more here. About a few months ago, Warner Brothers made the announcement that we will be getting a female-led Plastic Woman, Not Man movie. Hearing it may be a film like Shazam. Who do you think you could get to play the lead The Powers?
I'm not sure what they mean by that. But listen, if it's a question about who do I think they should get to play it, I don't care. I don't care. You guys know my feelings on that. X actor and X role, I don't care. All I ever care about is if it is a talented performer. That's all I care about. Because I don't know who would fit the role because I haven't read the script. I don't know how they're going to write the character and all that kind of stuff. So honestly, I just don't know. That being said, I do think it's a fascinating idea for a project, and I'm looking forward to seeing what direction they go. But again, at the end of the day, as long as they pick somebody who is a gifted and talented performer, I'll trust that they're getting somebody who's a good fit for the role. All right, what's next?
Anonymous says, "Is it possible for things to end badly for Wanda without her becoming a villain? I don't think her not becoming a villain negates all of the uniqueness of the show leading up to that. If she loses everything, that's still tragic to me."
I mean, yeah, it can still be very tragic, but what is the fallout of it being another tragedy? The life of Wanda Maximoff up to this point has been nothing but tragedy. At some point, there has to be a breaking point. You know what I mean? And so maybe not villain, maybe there's some other way out of this, but I just hope they don't end on a stereotypical paint by numbers, cookie cutter, standard comic book show or movie ending. Good guys team up together and win the day, yay, and everybody's happy. I mean, Kevin Feige will find a way to make that awesome if they do that, but I kind of hope with the uniqueness of this show and how completely fresh and original it's been, I would like to see them go for a little bit of a curveball ending on that too. But yes, it can absolutely still be great even if they don't do that. I just kind of hope they'll do the Shakespearean tragedy thing. That's just me. All right, what's next?
The Wakandan Forever says, "I've been loving WandaVision. There are rumors there is going to be a reporter on next week's episode. Do you know what that means? Superman, 100%. Don't you dare be disappointed if it's not. LOL. John, what has been your favorite Easter egg from the show?"
Ooh, that's a good question. Favorite Easter egg? I mean, There's been a number of things, and certainly a ton of videos out there about all the Easter eggs in episode 1, all the Easter eggs in episode 2, all the Easter eggs in episode 3. A lot of them aren't even Easter eggs. They're just coincidences, but there have been a bunch of Easter eggs. Look, at the risk of sounding stereotypical and everything like that, even though it's really not, it's more of a reveal than an Easter egg, the Evan Peters thing, like we knew it was coming, but I mean, that's still... Even if he turns out to be an imposter, which I still think he will end up being an imposter, but even if he does end up being an imposter, it's still an amazing stroke of genius to cast him in that role, even if he's not the Pietro from the X-Men universe, which I don't think he is. But I know, Kimberly, I know you've been watching this show as laser focused as I have.
Yes.
If you had to pick a favorite Easter egg or reveal or whatever, what has been your favorite so far?
For me, it has to be the Yo Magic commercial.
Oh, that has been so good.
To be one, because like that whole claymation took me right back to the 90s. But also there was, because the other ones were like, oh, these are commercials and they're just mentioning stuff. But the Yo Magic one stood out so much because of what the shark was saying was so specific. And it was my favorite because it gave me the most meat of like to dissect and think about like all night, because this is what I
remember when I got on Twitter as soon as that episode ended, I said, I think this commercial just told us basically what the show's about.
Yeah.
In a very low key way. And that could have very well been the Easter egg for a Mephisto or a Nightmare or something like that. So we'll see. All right, what's next?
The Wakandan Forever says, I feel WandaVision is going to nail the finale. I really hope it isn't a generic superhero battle and ending at the end. This could be the one chance Marvel has to really have stakes and not be the MCU fake death universe. Please don't let me down.
Yeah, everybody knows that my main gripe with the MCU, which I love the MCU, but everybody knows my main gripe is their over-reliance on fake deaths, and lo and behold, even Vision's back again. But I don't think Vision's actually back. And remember, 7 months after the events of WandaVision, the events of Spider-Man Far From Home happen, and in Spider-Man Far From Home, they say Vision's dead. Not only do they say Vision's dead, Kimberly, remember the scene in Far From Home where Spider-Man's talking to Nick Fury and trying to get him to get other Avengers? Like, what about
Where's
Captain
Thor?
Marvel off the floor?
Yeah.
What about Thor? Blah. You know who he never brings up? He never mentions Wanda. So it's almost like, does he know? Is it public knowledge at that point Wanda's just gone? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I'm reading into things too much, but it's clear that Vision is dead. Vision is dead. And again, listen, when you look at Disney Plus shows, Mandalorian season 1 nailed the ending. Mandalorian season 2, like, nailed the ending and blew its proverbial load all over us. I mean, it was amazing. WandaVision, I think, is setting up to be no less than that. I mean, so far they've got a track record of really hammering that ending. I think they will do it here. I hope it's one way. If it's not, I'm sure they'll find another way to make it great, but I expect them to nail the landing on this, and I think we'll all be satisfied. At least I hope so. Be a real shame right now if they don't. All right, what's next?
MD says, everyone's saying the Agatha reveal was predictable. Do they forget that the average Joe doesn't know jack about this stuff? I watched with my family who were shocked and yelping at the reveal. You can't chase theories all month and complain they're not true.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right. Now, listen, actually, you remember, I've been saying this whole time, I don't think Agnes is actually Agatha because they've been making it too obvious. I mean, the brooch is there, the name Agnes, Agatha, Harkness,
the witch theme,
the witch costume. It's like it's just been a little bit too obvious, but it was her. And you know, you guys heard that theory today that maybe Agatha Harkness isn't even real, that she might just be an extension of the Agnes character and is a part of Wanda's story, but we'll find that out later. But you're right. I think a lot of people, including myself, will sometimes forget 90% of the audience had never even heard of Agatha Harkness. I mean, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of my other thing too, is like Mephisto's a little on the nose, blah, blah, but on the nose for who? And I think you raised an excellent point there, MD. That's something we're going to have to keep in mind moving forward. All right, what's next?
K Major says, hey, John, I don't know if anyone's mentioned this angle, but if anything, we now have more possible tension/conflict between Monica and Hayward. Seeing how he has issues with superpowered beings, do you think we'll get more on Hayward's possible prejudice?
It's possible. I am still of the mind right now that Hayward is not a villain. I think Hayward is much, I compare him to General Thunderbolt Ross in the MCU. He's not a villain. He wants the safety of humanity. He wants the safety of the world. He wants what he considers to be the right thing to happen, but he's a total dick. and has some really twisted views on things. And by the way, that one little statement doesn't let us know that he has a total abased hatred of all superpowered beings. I think there's clearly some anger at superpower. Maybe he holds superpowered beings and the Avengers responsible for not being able to stop Thanos. We don't know. I still think there's a possibility that by the end of WandaVision, we're seeing Hayward and Monica working together. I don't know that, and I'm not willing to bet money on that, but you will see it could be setting up further narrative dissonance between the two characters with her now having powers, or maybe she had them all along. Who knows? Actually, let me ask you that, Kimberly. We saw that photon, spectrum, whatever you want to call her, Monica has manifested powers.
Yes.
Are they just brand new? What do you think? Do you think they're just brand new, or do you think they've actually been there the whole time and she either knew it or didn't know it? Where are you on that right now?
I think they're just brand new. I think they're just brand new because the Hex is such a crazy anomaly. And the fact that she has gone back and forth and back again, and we don't know if the people inside were created just inside it, or if they were an actual town full of people and she was just spreading the Hex and they got caught in it. But either way, she did go back and forth a lot. And they kind of explain it scientifically, the way Darcy is saying, hey, look at your blood, look
your
what's
cells
happening here in your cells. So I want to believe that.
So do you think if anybody goes back and forth through that wall, they'll become superpowered beings?
That's a great question.
Or is there something or is there something unique about her because of maybe her history with Captain Marvel, being around the Skrulls, being around, I don't know, because remember, she probably grew up being around Skrulls too, so I don't know.
That's true. It's possible that people that go back, forth, and back again, isn't that a song? Back. It's possible that people gain powers, and that could lead to some other interesting things. I know in the Mutantverse that you don't want to talk about that too soon, but I'm like, but because think about it, she hasn't, other than knowing Captain Marvel, it's not like Captain Marvel took her by the hand as a kid and said, come to space with me. Let me take you a tour around everything. And
but
then
what's
so special about her? But then again, her mom did raise her around Sword, so she could have been peeking around. And
she's a captain in Sword. Before she blipped, she was a captain in Sword.
So she's been around.
And exactly, she's done space missions. Because remember in her first meeting with Harry, he goes, for now you're grounded.
Oh.
Terrestrial missions only, remember? So before the blip, she was already doing space missions, and there's a lot for us to consider here. That's why I'm still a little bit confused.
So many things.
Still a little confused. All right. What's next?
This is from MD. Darcy was pretty clear that going through the Hex multiple times would affect Monica, not just once. The Hex wall increased in intensity as the first time she walked through versus the third time when she had to use significant force to get through. As far as we know, Monica is only person that's gone through the wall 3 times. So the beekeeper wouldn't just get powers, or anyone else for that matter. There's probably also something dormant in her that the multiple doses of radiation triggered.
Which is funny because we did not read ahead on that. This is literally just what I was thinking. Again, I don't know if they're just setting up where, okay, so if we want to create an army of superpowered beings, we just need to get Monica, or not Monica, but we just want to make that wall and just have people walk back and forth a few times and we superpowered beings. Or was there something special about her because of her history? That's going to be the big question. I do think they're going to answer that before the end of WandaVision. I think we're going to get clear answers on Monica before we move on from WandaVision, so I think we're going to find out the answers to that soon. All right, what's next?
Sergeant Ward says, hey, John, since all these streaming services are going the weekly release, Prime, Disney Plus, Apple TV, do you see this being done with Netflix? Not with every show, just with the shows that generate the most buzz, like Stranger Things or The Witcher.
Yes, absolutely. I 100%. As a matter of fact, I know for a fact that within the next couple of years, actually, I believe they're already starting to experiment a little bit. Look, there is no more debate. It's done. It is better for if your show is good, if it's good, it is better for your show to release on week to week. We saw WandaVision debut at number 35 worldwide. After week 5, it was number 1. Because week after week after week, people watched it, hyped about it, theorized about it, told their friends about it. They would jump on board, get caught up, and be there for the next episode. And then it happened again the week after. And then it happened again the week after. We saw that happen with Mandalorian. There's no debate. There's no question. You and I may prefer the binge model, but what's best for the show is the week to week. And Netflix is going to move in that direction. I don't know if it's going to happen in the next 2 years. Might be 3 or 4. But again, and it won't help shows that are bad. Shows that aren't great, it won't help. It'll actually hurt. You might want to just drop all those at once. But for good shows, it is clear that's it. And Netflix is going to start experimenting with that. As a matter of fact, they already started. So there's that. All right, what's next?
Joe D says, WandaVision theories. Senor Scratchy is Nicholas Scratch. Commercials are key events of loss. Stark's parents' death, Strucker's Pietro's death, Lagos' loss of second family, Yo Magic, final loss of vision, maybe, and Nexus is preview of DS2, maybe.
Okay, so that's the thing. That has been the confusing part for me about that Yo Magic commercial. Because up until that point, every commercial has been a representation of various tragedies in Wanda's life. Stark's bomb, Strucker, Hydra, because they were the ones who experiment on them. Don't forget about the Hydra one. And then we get to Yo Magic. And that's the one that kind of changes gears. And then, of course, we have the new one with Nexus, which is like, oh my God, are they bringing in the Nexus of all realities? And if that's the case, literally Batman could walk through the door next week. It's the Nexus of all realities. And so that gets really crazy. So I don't know. That raised more, these last two commercials, especially the Yo Magic one, raised more questions than the answer, but let's keep our eyes on it. All right, what's next?
Who hurt you, John? Says, John's going to need trust therapy. John, it's all Wanda. Monica, it's all Wanda. John, it's not all Wanda. John, I don't think that's Pietro. Wanda, that man is not your uncle. Vision, who's that imposter Pietro? John, guys, it just might be Pietro.
That's the thing. That is the thing. And we've talked about this, but like I was so convinced right up until the end of episode 4 that this was indeed all Wanda. Until Monica said it's all Wanda. Once Monica said it's all Wanda, then I'm like, they wouldn't be telling us that right now if that was true. So I completely changed my theory. And then I'm like, Pietro is an imposter. Pietro's an imposter. Wanda says Pietro's an imposter. Vision says Pietro's an imposter. And I'm like, no, I'm not so sure.
We're addicted to the drama.
No, I'm not so sure. It's this double talk. It's this reverse psychology. And that's why, that's also why now I'm looking at that Agatha song. It's been Agatha all along. And I'm thinking, you know what? I bet it's not Agatha. And I killed Sparky too. I'm thinking that commercial leads me to believe it's not all Agatha, that Agatha's part of the story.
They keep us guessing.
You're right. I have trust issues. This Kevin Feige is giving me major, major trust issues. Okay. What's next?
Anonymous says, to be fair, the multiverse is mentioned in FFH. Just happens that the version Beck presents is not real.
Yeah, true. So that's something I've been bringing up a number of times. Remember this concept of the multiverse. People keep expecting something to happen in Wanda that introduces multiverse. Multiverse is already around. The multiverse became a thing with the events of Infinity War and Endgame and its reference in Far From Home. And of course, then even Quentin Beck pretends to be somebody from that multiverse when in actuality he was not, which led some people, and I thought it was a possibility. I never put my money on it, but I said, yeah, Quentin Beck showing up as that engineer, because this is 7 months before the events of Far From Home, is totally a possibility. So, I mean, again, it's a lot of the reverse psychology stuff. Let's see where they're going with it. All right, what's next?
Asian Cajun says, movie truths all true, stories and tragic, i.e. Brian Singh, probably song, Old Yeller's dying, easy comedies hard, i.e. Ben Stiller movie, action movies are as good as its villain, i.e. Star Wars, Jaws, great love stories are a part
Guys, really, please write out more, please. Think about what you're writing out when you write these things out. Okay, sorry, go ahead and finish that.
Okay. Of a movie, i.e. Casablanca, When Harry Met Sally.
I mean, look, there are certain truths when it comes to film, right? Like, you're right. Action films, not all the time, but quite often, they're only as good as their villain gets. A lot of things end with tragedies and all that kind of stuff. And so it's true, when you're approaching a film like that, it's like, there are certain things that work better than others depending on the genre. Not that means it becomes a formula or that's what you always go with necessarily, but those observations are actually bang on. All right, what's next?
Anonymous says, I'm kind of glad the engineer was nobody. I want this show to be good on its own merits, not just because of Cameo / setting up things to come.
Well, nobody said that those two things are mutually exclusive. You can do both. You can have big reveals and cameos and be an excellent show. But just because there's not big cameos does not mean it's absent of being an excellent show at the same time. And by the way, I'll say it again, Anonymous, I'm not convinced we've even had the engineer reveal yet. We may have. I'm not convinced we haven't. But I still think there is a chance. that we get that engineer reveal in episode 8. Just a chance. I'm not saying I'm convinced, just a chance. All right, what's next?
Let's see. This is coming from Power is Power. I've got a cell phone with a camera, as well as an auto record camera on helmet. Pretty sure the same goes for Iron Man, War Machine, Rescue, Iron Spider-Man, Black Panther, Shuri, Nebula, etc. Word of mouth aside, plenty of endgame battle footage for world to see.
So what this is about is that
I agree.
a bunch of people have been sending in saying, wait a minute, how did Darcy know all those details about Vision?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, because they would have told, with the most significant event in human history,
Mm-hmm.
every detail will be chronicled and every detail will be reported. Heck,
Yep.
at the how did Iron Man 2 begin? Iron Man 2 begins with a congressional hearing.
Yeah.
A congressional hearing.
Yep.
With every detail laid bare and stuff like that. And of course, the events of that would absolutely be made public knowledge. This isn't some secret thing where the government's got to keep this quiet. You don't want the world to know about. Everybody lost their mothers, their fathers, their husbands, their wives, their brothers, their sisters, their loved ones, their friends. They lost everything the world needed to know. And I completely believe, with all the ways you just mentioned in their Power's Power, there would have been easy ways to have those records. So yes, I completely agree with you. Darcy would have known. The world would have known. All right. What's next?
From Eli Cajigas. Hi, John. Love the show.
Thank you.
Do you think there's a chance that book Agatha has in her possession is the book called Word of God?
No, I don't think that. But the only thing I know for certain, there's one thing I know for certain, and there's one thing I suspect. The thing I know for certain is it's not the Darkhold. That much we know for certain. Unless Kevin Feige is really pissing all over Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and just using a completely different Darkhold and pretending Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't even exist. But it's not the Darkhold. The thing I suspect is that this book would have been a book missing or stolen from the Sanctum from Doctor Strange, the library, the same place that Caecilius went and stole the one book from. I think it's a different book than the one Caecilius took, but I do think it's possible it's one of those books. It's a book that's holding something captive. I mean, you can tell that by looking at it. When they cut the camera to the book, all that power is surrounding it, and it's moving a bit. So I think she's trying to open that book. Whether it's legit and real or not, I'm not sure, but no, I don't think it's that. All right, what's next?
Coming from Captain Blue Pants, hiya! The Marvel TV shows were decanonized by Feige when he said that the Disney Plus shows would be the only true ties to the MCU. So they are irrelevant for theories. Also, the Darkhold was in Runaways too. So it might be redesigned to avoid confusion.
Well, that's what I was just kind of saying, right? I was just saying, like, if it is the Darkhold, then Kevin Feige is really dissing the other shows because they're saying, oh no, that's not even real. This is the Darkhold. That's not real. Those shows don't exist. That wasn't the Darkhold. All that. This is the Darkhold. So I got a feeling it's not the Darkhold. It's probably something else. But if it is, that's really Kevin Feige sticking up a middle finger to those other shows. So I don't know. We'll see where they go with that. All right, what's next?
Captain Blue Pants says, also a handy tip for anyone sending you multi-part comments and questions. Type it up on a note app or email draft first. That way you can check your spelling, split the message up, and send it on the tip page without leaving long gaps in between them.
Captain Blue Pants, thank you so much. Because quite often one of the things we have to do is, and no, listen, and it's not a big deal for us, but it is difficult when we see like one of two, and then we have to scroll through like 5 other questions before we find part 2. So if you can come over the cool little way to send it a little bit quicker. I mean, it's fine though. Like when it's separated by 1 or 2 questions, it's not a big deal. But if people could do what Captain Blue Pants was just suggesting, it's not a huge deal, but it would make our lives a little bit easier. So that would be wonderful. All right, what's next?
Ann Perkins says, just for kicks, running on the Parks and Rec connections to the MCU. Pick one to Cameo. Any MCU show or film. Ron Swanson, April Ludgate, Councilman Jam, or Perd Hapley. My personal choice is Ron Once All the Bacon Swanson.
I mean, listen, Ron Swanson is one of my top 5. I recently posted like at my top 5, and I don't often do top 5 or top 10 lists, but I just personally decided to put up on social media my top 5 favorite lead male characters on television of all time. And I'm not going to Mr. Kim is one of them. Lucifer, played by Tom Ellis on the show Lucifer, is one of them. But Ron Swanson is one of those. Ron Swanson with his own, the pyramid of excellence with the Ron Swanson at the top. Ron Swanson, who any dog under 10 pounds is a cat and cats are useless. That Ron Swanson. And Ron Swanson is my favorite one of my absolute favorite characters in television. So I would take that one, Ann Perkins, all day, every day. If you had to pick one, because I know you like stuff. If you had to pick one Parks and Rec.
In my head.
I love that one. If you had to pick one, who do you want to see cameo in the MCU somewhere?
I would love to see John Ralphio.
Oh my gosh.
Especially when they're getting the stones. Like him, I forgot what his sister's name was, but if they got one of the stones and they said, "Don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious," that would be so great.
I forget her name. She was in Venom.
So funny.
Remember the one who played his sister?
That's right.
She was that one doctor in Venom, right?
She's a very, very funny lady.
That whole family,
And
John
then
Ralphio, his sister, and their dad, the Fonz. Henry Winkler was their dad in that. That whole family.
That whole family is
kill me.
The greatest. With his hair, the blow dry. I would love to see him.
The Tom Haverford, Jean Ralphio relationship is one of the best ever on TV. I love that. Okay, sorry about that. All right, what's next?
Miguel Zion says, "Hi, John. Over under 25% that Ultron comes back in the next 5 years. It's suggested that Sword was making a new weapon out of Vision's new body. Would you want to this? I just want to hear Spader's Ultron voice again. LOL, since my dad has been watching Blacklist."
I like Blacklist too, as a matter of fact. I do. I enjoy that show. I've been watching it for a few years. Listen, I'll tell you what, Miguel. It's small. I still think there's a chance Ultron shows up in WandaVision. Now, I'm not willing to put any money on that. Like I said, I don't think it's likely. I think it's a relatively small chance. But because of all the things that you said and laid out, I agree. And I think that's why it is conceivable that we do get an Ultron appearance in WandaVision. Again, don't misquote me. I'm not saying he will. I'm just saying it's conceivable. If there was any time to do it, this is it. I think the longer it goes, the less and less of a chance that we get Ultron back in the MCU. So I think today is the best chance ever. Tomorrow will be a little bit less of a chance than today, but will be the best chance you're ever going to have. The next day will be a little bit less of a chance, but the best chance you're ever going to have. So every day that we move further and further away from the movie Age of Ultron, the chance lessens. But I think there is a possibility he may even show up here. All right, what's next?
Andre, aka Caveman, says, "Hey, John, hope all is well. I'm a longtime watcher and first-time tipper.
Oh, thank you, Andre.
I just watched Fat Man last night and really enjoyed it. Just wondering if you have seen it yet."
I still haven't gotten around to watch it. That's the one, of course, with Mel Gibson and
Walton Goggins.
Yeah, Goggins, whose show, The Unicorn, unfortunately disappoints me. But I do love Walton Goggins. I loved him in Sons of Anarchy. And I've heard very, very mixed things. I've heard some people that say it's just the weirdest, most awesome thing. I've heard some people say it's just the weirdest, most weird thing, period. But I do want to get around to seeing it. The trailer did intrigue me. I like stuff like that. But I haven't seen it yet. I hope to soon. All right, what's next?
Anonymous says, "I know I'm probably in the minority on this, but I don't like the fact that they gave Monica powers. She hasn't really done anything to make me enjoy her character. And now it feels like just anybody can get powers. Like Falcon says, everybody's got a gimmick."
Well, I mean, the one thing is this, though. Monica, it's not like Monica is some rando. She is a well-established comic book character with a well-established history, with well-established powers. So there is that. You could say the same thing, too, about Thor. Wow, the movie starts and he just has all these powers. Well, yes, because he's Thor. Now, listen, I didn't think they would give her powers until Captain Marvel 2. I didn't think they should give her powers till Captain Marvel 2, but I say that without having seen episodes 8 and 9 yet. It may become abundantly clear why they've given her powers at this point. And by the way, they may say she's had the powers her whole time. But what you just said is a common critique I have of not just the MCU, but also the DCEU. There's too many superhero characters. Like literally, it used to be, see, this is my complaint. It used to be back in the day of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. Spider-Man was a unique entity in the world. people with superpowers wasn't a thing. Spider-Man was unique. And because of that uniqueness, people would look at what Spider-Man does with awe and wonder. And it's like, it's fantasy come to life. It's all this kind of stuff. The same with Christopher Nolan's Batman. That's one of the things that made Christopher Nolan's Batman so special. He was unique in the universe. He had no special powers, but he was the lone hero. Yeah. Today, every 7-Eleven has 5 superheroes on its roof patrolling for crime. There's literally, every time you turn around, there's a superhero there. There's a superhero. Don't see a superhero yet? Walk into Walmart. You're bumping into 7. They're no longer unique in the universe. Somebody has an ability for eyes to glow. Okay, but like Monica's eyes glowed, right?
Yeah.
Whoop-de-doo. I've seen 500 characters make their eyes glow. I mean, it is one of those things, but that is one of the natural pitfalls when you have shared cinematic universes. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing is unique anymore. There's nothing special about any of these characters now because, oh, this guy can do this. Wow, there's 50 other characters who can do exactly that and 500 other characters who can do things similar to that. So I get it. But again, you got to understand, Monica is well established in the comics. Like, I thought they were going to wait till Captain Marvel 2. Did you think they're going to show their powers right now? I
totally thought they were going to wait. Or I thought something would happen at the very, very end, like after whatever the big showdown is, that maybe she would look off to the side and her eyes would just glow. Like, oh, you know what? I do feel weird now that I've gone in and out. And then her eyes would glow and then we'd cut to black and Monica Rambeau will return. Like, I would have been very pleased with that. So then I would have known, okay, something's going to be up the next one. But I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. Blue eyes. Let's do this.
If they're giving her powers now, it's for a reason.
Yeah.
And so listen, Kevin Feige doesn't just do things for the sake of doing them. If he's given her powers now, it's because there's a reason it's going to play out in episode 8. So let's hang tight and see where that goes. But I totally understand your frustration, Anonymous. All right, what's next?
Caleb says, hi, John and Rob. Trying not to be political, but what's so bad about Ben Shapiro making movies through Daily Wire? I think that the news is sacred, but most people can tell that's an opinion site, not a news one. And don't all movies have a message anyway? Maybe this is a bad analogy, but Disney and ABC News have been together for decades. Same with Universal and MSNBC. Paramount and CBS News, and WB and CNN. What do you think of this? Sorry if you've already addressed this. I just wanted to understand it more.
No, it's a totally fair question. So here's the difference. There's a difference between Disney owning ABC and ABC going and doing things. The difference is, what's the girl's name on MSNBC? Rachel Maddow? Mm-hmm. I think that's her name. There's a difference between, Universal owns, what's the name of the company that owns, I keep forgetting the name of the company that owns Universal, Comcast. Comcast owns NBC and owns Universal's, and NBC Universal, right? But there's a difference between that and Rachel Maddow herself going out and making movies. While at the same time, see, look, and I'm only speaking for myself here, so don't take this as gospel truth. The reason, even in seminary, I hate Christian movies. I developed my hatred of Christian movies in seminary. That's where I started to hate them, because they're bad. But beyond being bad is because they were always made with an agenda. They were always purely made with an agenda, and the agenda took priority. It's fine to have an agenda, but the agenda in like these low budget, low quality Christian movies, the agenda came before the story. And it's great if you tell your story and something comes out. And I remember me being in Bible college and even some friends of mine, we'd like see these Christian movies and we go, oh, dear heavens, this is bad, so bad. But I generally don't like anything in movies that are preachy. I don't like anything in movies that are preachy. That's why sometimes I don't even, there are some of the Ricky Gervais stuff I don't even like because he's so damn preachy about his atheism that it turns me off. Just like the Christian movies getting all preachy about their stuff turns me off. How does this relate to Ben Shapiro, Rachel Maddow? The thing is, anything that Ben Shapiro is going to make, or just like anything Rachel Maddow would make, would be 100% agenda-driven, would be 100% preachy. Preachy on that side or preachy, and I don't care which side. I don't like preachy at all. And that's all it's going to be. It's going to be them using their thing to promote their own agenda. And that to me is a big turnoff. It's an absolute complete turnoff to me. That's why if Rachel Maddow was announcing a movie tomorrow, I wouldn't watch it. You couldn't pay me $100 to go and watch it. You can pay me $1,000 to go watch it. If you really want to pay me $1,000 to watch Rachel Maddow's movie, I'll go do that. Otherwise, no, thank you. So, no, I think those things should be separated. And by the way, I don't even mind. Like I said, I don't mind a company that owns a news division and owns a movie and owns thing as long as they're not the same people running it. As long as you don't have your news person overseeing and running your movie stuff, that's a line that shouldn't be crossed, in my opinion. Now, I'm sure there are exceptions. I'm sure there are holes in the way I'm thinking. But you asked me the question about why I feel that way about it. That's the why I feel that way about it. I think it devalues, it hijacks the art and turns it into just another chariot for somebody's political agenda. And I would hate it if one side, and I do often hate it when one side does it, and I'll hate it equally when the other side does it. And to me, you're not going to get any of my attention. So that's just me. Totally fair question, though, Caleb. Totally fair question, but that's my own personal point of view. I'm not telling you that needs to be your point of view. I'm not saying that needs to be anybody else's point of view. That's just mine, and I only tell you because you asked. All right. What is next?
The Wakandan Forever says, wrestling fans, OSW, Old School Wrestling Review. What bar is the ultimate warrior? He has a rainbow-colored costume. He is a Christmas-themed Hershey candy bar or a bag of Skittles. John, what wrestler has the best face paint? P.S. WrestleMania is April 10th.
The best face paint in wrestling. I don't know. Look, I mentioned, somebody was asking me a question the other day, and I said Demolition was my favorite. I had really great face. What the hell is his name? Right now, he is, let me just look this up. He is the heavyweight champion, NXT champion. I think he's Irish. What is his name? Finn Balor? Is that his name? Yeah, Finn Balor has two separate personas. One is when he just looks normal. The other, he's got this face makeup thing he wears, and that's pretty good face makeup. Matt Hardy also now has some, or not Matt Hardy. Is it Matt Hardy or is it his brother? One of the Hardy brothers has a pretty cool one where when his eyes are closed, he's got open eyes painted on his eyelids, which is actually pretty cool. So those are some of the fun ones. All right, what's next?
Sorry.
You trying to picture all that?
I think that's so funny when people draw eyes on top of their eyelids.
Oh, I know.
Sorry. Okay. The Wakandan Forever says, sports fans, Black History Month fun fact. The Harlem Globetrotters were founded in 1926.
I did not know that.
I saw them live at the Delta Center in Salt Lake City, Utah in 1987 against the Washington Generals.
They always played the Washington Generals.
I got a wristband and threw a bucket of confetti on a guy's head.
Listen, I grew up watching the Harlem Globetrotters. I used to love like Curly Neal, and I used to love watching. It was always against the Washington Generals, and it was like professional wrestling. As a kid, I thought it was real, but they were so entertaining. I even remember they made a cartoon. I think it was Scooby-Doo. I think it might have been Scooby-Doo teams up with the Harlem Globetrotters, and they all had, each of the Harlem Globetrotters had their own unique superpower.
Really?
Like one of them turned into like a human spring. One of them turned into like living spaghetti, and they did all this wild stuff. I even remember when I was a little kid, I used to love watching my even though the show was before my time, my parents would have me watch like reruns of Gilligan's Island. And then years later, there was a Gilligan's Island special where the castaways had already been rescued, but the castaways all decided to move back to the island, and they made a resort out of it. And to help promote the resort, they got the Harlem Globetrotters to come and play a celebrity basketball game of. I mean, this is going way back when I was a child. But man, I used to love the Harlem Globetrotters, and they're still doing it today. And it is some crazy stuff.
You know, they saved the NBA.
I did not know this.
Back in the day, in the 50s, when the NBA was like up and coming, they were struggling and people weren't going. And so they had these guys, I think they did like double headers where it'd be a game, but then they'd have the Globetrotter game.
Oh my gosh.
Where instead of just doing the basketball, they'd stop and spin it. And then people were like, oh, you got to go see this. And then the fandom really started to,
I never knew this.
And they saved the NBA because the NBA wasn't doing well in the early 50s.
I got to look at more history.
Chamberlain started on the Harlem Globetrotters.
I got to look at more history. This sounds amazing. All right.
Stuff.
What's next?
Harry R. says, hey, John, your show is helping me keep sane during the UK lockdown.
Thank you for letting us be there with you, Harry.
WandaVision theory. Keanu will show up as Mephisto by the end of the series, setting him up to be the big bad for this phase. Agatha killing Sparky is an ironic nod to John Wick.
And listen, there are so many people right now.
I love this.
I have read so many people saying they think Keanu Reeves is going to be Mephisto. And this is all rooted about 6 months to a year ago. Keanu Reeves was talking about, there was a story that came out that Kevin Feige and Keanu Reeves had met at one point to talk about, and Kevin Feige had said we had tried at different points to get him into the MCU.
They've wanted him for a long time.
So, I mean, sure. The predominant theory right now is that it's going to be Al Pacino. First of all, I don't even know that Mephisto is going to be in this.
Yeah.
But the predominant theory right now is that it's going to be Mephisto. And I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the dominant theory, and that it will be played by Al Pacino, who has also in the past expressed interest in being in the thing. But it could, listen, could be Keanu Reeves. Could totally be Keanu Reeves.
Anything with Keanu Reeves, with the fact that she said that Agatha killing the dog
would be just like a little nod
would be
to
a
it.
nod. That would be so awesome.
And of course, the best part about all this, Keanu Reeves, ladies and gentlemen, good Canadian kid. All right. What's next?
CK from London says, greetings once again from London, John. I just wanted to say thank you very much for reading my first ever message a few weeks ago. I was exercising at the time and almost dropped a weight when I heard my message being read out. It was surreal. LOL. Hold on one second. Now, for my first actual question. Do you know what the situation is with the He-Man film? That movie has been trying to gain traction for several years. As a kid in the 80s, I loved the animated series and collected the action figures too.
Okay, the He-Man saga is one that's been going on forever. And, you know, my friend Christian Harloff, he once said the perfect He-Man movie would be a cross between Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. That's what a He-Man movie should be. And he's not wrong. They have been trying for so long to get that. And then for a long time, I keep forgetting the name of the guy who directed Crazy Rich Asians. But the dude who directed Crazy Rich Asians.
David something?
No. Anyway, his name's not Dave. Could you look that up for me? The guy who directed Crazy Rich Asians, and I'm slipping on his mind right now, but he also is the same guy who directed the Justin Bieber documentary,
Never Say Never.
Never Say Never, or Never Stop, Never Stopping. Which is, of course, the Lonely Island one. But, and then he was attached to direct a He-Man movie. And then this kid, something Centrino, who was in the Netflix movies To All the Boys I've Loved Before. John Chu, thank you very much. Then the kid from the main love interest guy from All the Boys I've Loved Before, Nick Centrino, he was supposedly cast as He-Man, which is like, okay, but that kid is like, I mean, he looks very healthy, good-looking kid, all that kind of stuff. But he is, by all definition, very average in physical build. He's not He-Man. I mean, he's a good-shaped kid, absolutely a good-shaped kid, but it's not He-Man. So I don't know, there was that. But really, since then, I've heard nothing.
Really?
I've heard nothing. So at this point, I think that thing is just cursed. I don't know if it's ever going to get made. But for all I know, they're filming next week. But honestly, for right now, I don't think it's ever getting made.
Didn't He-Man have a bowl cut?
A little bit of a bowl cut, yes. Thankfully, Dolph Lundgren did not sport that haircut when he did his version of the movie. But yeah, a little bit there. They're one of my favorite memes, though.
Is like Anna Wintour.
I put this up on, where did I put it? I put it up on Twitter. It's this picture where it's from the crossover, but He-Man holding Teela, Princess of Power. And that was her name, right? Teela? I think it was Teela.
I don't remember.
She-Ra, Princess of Power.
Oh, yeah.
So he's holding She-Ra, Princess of Power. And it said, and the title of it says 50 Shades of Grayskull, which I thought, well, that's pretty funny. But honestly, I don't know anything more, and I'm starting to wonder if it's ever actually going to happen. All right, what's next?
Suthius says, hey guys, I think a few days ago, a viewer asked why the alarms didn't go off when Monica was trying to get back inside with the rover. Let's not forget that it's only mere hours into the next morning and that the temporary sword retreat is 8 miles away.
Yeah, no, that's actually a great point to raise. Like, maybe that wouldn't have made a difference, but if you wanted to say that was the difference, that totally makes logical sense. They had to scatter. Their whole base was wrapped up. Now they just sent up a new temporary place to do everything. So yeah, that would totally make sense. That's a good observation, Suthius. Well said. All right, what's next?
The Wakandan Forever says, what was worse? Superman lost to Batman in Batman vs. Superman, or Hulk beat down by Thanos in Infinity War? Don't treat the Kryptonian god and the incredible world breaker that way. Want a sandwich or feed fish line? Leave the jobbing to Condiment King and Aquaman.
No, listen. It is very clear. Batman and Superman are two members of the DC Trinity. If any members of the DC Trinity fight each other, that's not jobbing. That's the only thing. Nobody else in the DC universe, not Green Arrow, not Black Canary, not Flash, not nobody should beat a member of the Trinity. The only time it's ever acceptable that one of the members of the Trinity loses to another without it being considered jobbing is when it's to another member of that Trinity. That's fine. Batman, look, Superman beats Batman 9 times out of 10, but Batman, anybody who isn't named Jesus could lose to Batman because he's Batman, all right? It's just it. He's Batman. With Hulk, they had already kind of said in Guardians of the Galaxy that the most powerful being in the universe was Thanos. Remember, that's what Jaimon Hansu says when Ronan, the accuser, says he's going to go after Thanos. And Jaimon Hansu says, you can't, Thanos is the most powerful being in the universe, right? So they already set that up. So if you're going to have Thanos kind of display at the beginning of Infinity War that he is the most powerful being in the universe, you don't have him fight some average person. Have him fight Hulk. That'll do it. Have him fight Hulk. And if then that shows big, huge badass. I did not consider that jobbing. When you're fighting against a guy who's supposed to be the most... So there's a difference between jobbing and just straight up, someone's got to lose this, whatever. But unlike what CW did to Superman, which totally was turning him into a big jobber, there's that. But I don't think that's this situation. All right, what's next?
The frustrated screenwriter says, there's actually a precedent for a Marvel show about a mentally unstable yet ultra-powerful
Legion.
character who is being manipulated by another entity. Legion. WandaVision's wackiness is balanced and fun, but Legion shoves its weirdness down your throat. Thoughts?
The problem is, this is where WandaVision, this is going to be controversial to some people, this is where WandaVision is superior to Legion. Legion was a show I hated the premiere, gave up on it immediately, got back onto it a little bit later, and ended up loving season 1. Season 2 lost me. I mean, when you're just wacky and trippy and psychedelic for the sake of being wacky and trippy and psychedelic, like everything that's being done in WandaVision has narrative purpose. Every single thing. Every era of the sitcom stuff, everything is connected to something deeply narrative. With Legion, it just kind of eventually lost me, and I just wasn't there for that. So yeah, I mean, you are talking about a very mentally fragile, but like Legion, it was more than just a little bit mentally fragile. So that's a little bit different. But I just think Wanda does it a lot better, and that's just my take. But then again, I know some people, some friends of mine who just like Legion for them is like a top 5 television series of all time. But I actually think Wanda's the superior product. But that's just my opinion. Everybody's going to have their own. That's just mine. All right, what's next?
Johnny Manickson says, can we talk about the fact that Agnes is a fourth wall breaking character like Deadpool? Agnes is the only one who looks at us, the audience, not the TV show broadcasts, because it was down at the time. Watching since you and Amy Rose on AMC, bring the filthy.
Thanks, man. Well, I mean, I don't know. Within the context of this show, I don't know if we can say she's a fourth wall breaker, because everything she's done in the show is consistent with other things that's been done in the show. So I don't necessarily think, and again, going back to a theory that was brought up on the John Campea Show earlier today by a viewer, I think Agatha Harkness isn't even real. I think there's a very good chance Agatha Harkness is just an extension of Agnes, the character Agnes, and is herself a character in Wanda's narrative. That Wanda is setting up this story, and that Agatha is just a part of that. That Agatha is now the villain of the WandaVision show broadcast. You know what I mean? But there's that. But again, even if that's not true, and there's a good chance it's not, even if that's not true, anything done in the show, I don't really consider her a fourth wall breaking character, understanding the nature of the show so far. All right, what's next?
If you don't answer this, says, it's wild that if Wanda and Monica team up and win and all happy, we will be disappointed compared to crying and having a serious meltdown be seen as entertainment. We need help.
Well, no, look, again, I said this before. If they're going to do the cookie cutter formulaic superhero show ending to a show that's been incredibly unique, Kevin Feige will find a way to make it really great. It'll be great. And we'll all be smiling and we'll all be satisfied. But I think it'll be a giant missed opportunity. This show screams non-formulaic. This show screams uniqueness. For them to go the Shakespearean tragedy route, something they haven't really done. I mean, you can make an argument for Infinity War ends with tragedy, obviously. But outside of that, not much. It'd just be a bit of a missed opportunity. But at the end of the day, they'll make it good. They'll make it satisfying. And if they do it well, whichever way they go, people will be happy. People will be happy. All right, what's next?
Genevieve McAdams says, "Hi, John. Love the show. I was just thinking about what year WandaVision is set. I Googled it and it said 2023. But the end credit scene of Thor Ragnarok, which sets up the beginning of Infinity War, seems to be set a few days after Asgard is destroyed." Hold on one sec. My question is, and please correct me if I am wrong, if that end credit scene is only a few days after Thor Ragnarok and Infinity War is set in 2017, wouldn't that make both Endgame and WandaVision set in 2022 and not 2023? Thanks so much.
Honestly, Genevieve, I think it's irrelevant. I think we're getting into, like, it'd be one thing if we were talking about decades. If we're talking about like entire decades, we're talking about the difference of 1 or 2 years. So I really don't think it's important. I don't think that is a really fine line. Like if it's set in 2022 instead of 2023, unless they say there's some narrative significance, like Far From Home is set 8 months after the events of Endgame, WandaVision takes place 3 weeks after the events of Endgame, then that becomes very significant. Other than that, it's a small detail about which year that is, and it really doesn't affect anything. Like if we say it's 2022, it doesn't affect anything. If we say it's 2023, it doesn't really affect anything. So I'm personally don't see that as being important. I mean, it's a fascinating thing to bring up and to look at, but for me, it's kind of a non-issue at that point. At least that's the way it is for me. All right, what's next?
Loki Doki says, "I want to bring up a theory that I have that hasn't been said yet about the whole engineer thing. So Monica obviously said, 'my guy,' and then we see her meet a female. I think it is her guy, him being a Skrull. That has taken the form of this woman we saw." Hold on. "This could explain her saying she was meeting her guy and the whole loyalty comment that was made when they did meet. I think it's very possible. Or I don't know WTF I'm talking about, and she just hasn't met with this engineer dude yet. LOL. What you say?"
Well, listen, we've said before that one of the possibilities of is that could be a Skrull, and it could even be Talos's daughter. I mean, remember, because she made buddy-buddy with Talos.
They were the same age.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that's theoretically possible, although she didn't talk like she was talking to an alien being in disguise, but whatever.
Yeah, that wouldn't make sense.
No.
She'd have to, like, clear that up.
There are 3 possibilities. Obvious. Possibility number 1, that was the engineer, period.
Yeah.
Not what we were expecting, and that's very possible. Possibility number 2, there is still the engineer reveal to happen. And that could happen in episode 8, maybe in episode 9. Possibility number 3, that being was a Skrull. Maybe Talos's daughter, maybe another Skrull altogether. But that is also a possibility. So those are the 3 possibilities. I'm not quite sure. Right now, I'm slightly leaning towards we're still going to meet the engineer.
You think so?
I'm leaning towards that. But I wouldn't be willing to bet you dinner or anything like that. I wouldn't put $1 on that. I'm just leaning, but it could be either one of those. Can you think of a 4th option? Those are the only 3 I can really think of off the top of my head.
No, I can't, because it was so final. Because correct me if I'm wrong, I thought she said, "Oh, here's my guy," when she walked over whatever hill or to the area. I thought she said something to the degree of, "Oh, and here's my guy," or here they are. I'm gonna have to watch that again, but I thought she already mentioned that
See,
this was
I didn't.
the person.
But you could be right and I could be
watch
wrong.
that again.
We'll find out. We'll find out. All right, what's next?
Suthius says, "Jesus Christ, just finished my latest binge, the John Campea Show companion videos, 18 of them.
Wow.
So much content on my to-watch list I had to catch up on that I fell behind on your companion videos. Perhaps you could start your own stream service."
Don't laugh. True story. Back when, and sorry, this is a little bit of a side note, but do you remember, and I don't know how closely you stay in tune with all the drama that goes on YouTube in general, but about a year ago, maybe it was 2 years ago now, there was this thing where YouTube was cracking down on people who made content for kids. And they
Yes,
were starting
I do.
this thing that you had to now denote if your content was for kids.
Yes.
If it is, you don't get any advertising on your site, on your channel. If you don't, and then later they decide your video was made for kids, you get fined like $70,000 or something like for every infraction. And that left me paranoid because like I did my Frozen 2 review. I did not make that for kids. But is some YouTube algorithm or is some person at YouTube going to say, well, it's about a family movie, so that was for kids and you didn't denote this for kids, $70,000. And so I really started looking at what are my alternatives to YouTube. Now, don't get me wrong, YouTube does a lot of great things and they provide a great service. They really do. But between that, they keep 50% of ad revenue. They keep 30% of super chat revenue. They take a lot of money.
Wow.
And that and this whole fear about what could happen. And then I was starting to have streaming problems due to them and all that kind of stuff. And I started trying to think of what is an alternative. I looked at the Twitch route, but I really decided that wasn't the right one for my kind of show. And I started thinking about making my show only for our Patreon supporters.
Oh, yeah.
Like go from, I don't know, 40,000 people watching an episode to 500 people watching an episode. But I would never have to worry about what YouTube was doing and our Patreon support. Well, we have more than 500 Patreon supporters, but then our Patreon supporters would financially support the show and everything would still be fine. And I thought about making a pay-per-view streaming channel, my own unique standalone,
Oh, that's cool.
John Campea Plus or something like
Here we
that,
go.
where, like $10 a month and you get, unlike Disney Plus, it only gives you one season of Mandalorian a year. I would give you 20 videos a week or something along those lines, right? I thought about it. I ultimately opted against it, but don't laugh, Suthius. That is something I kind of gave some consideration to at some point. All right, what's next?
Loki Doki says, the interviewer on WandaVision that asks if she deserves it was Catherine Hahn, pitched down to sound like a man. Listen to it again and you'll hear it's her voice. I knew it sounded familiar, but I didn't realize it was her voice till I saw her sitting behind the camera.
Yeah, that was kind of funny to me because really Wanda did Wanda see something else? Like Wanda just thought it was kind of not unusual that it was, Agnes sitting there.
Because remember she said, are you supposed to be talking to me?
Yeah, are you supposed to talk and all that kind of stuff? Another reason why I think maybe Agatha is just an extension of the Agnes character and is actually it's a part of Wanda's narrative. I don't know yet, but you're absolutely right about that, Loki Doki. All right, what's next?
Loki Doki says, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had a few good details by the end of the show that implied it was taking place in a different timeline than the MCU. So I would bet some monies that is the Darkhold. Anybody want that action with me? John?
Again, listen, I will bring it up right now. I snapped a picture of my TV screen. This is the book that they were talking about, okay? So this is the book. Go back now and just do a quick Google image search. Actually, let me see if I can do that for you. Hold a second. Darkhold Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Let's see if I can bring up an image of this. I'm not sure that I can. There we go. Okay, so I've got an image of it here. So here is the Darkhold in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Okay, that's the Darkhold in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That is the book in WandaVision. Book in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., book in WandaVision. They are clearly, obviously, two completely different books. They're not the same thing. So I'm going to stick with this is indeed not the Darkhold. That's the one I'm going to stick with for now. All right, what's next?
All right, this is coming from Toasty. Hi, John. I was looking at info from the MK movie and noticed that in RT, they have the runtime as an hour-and-a-half movie. It may not be accurate, but do you think that's enough time for a movie with this many characters? I hope for at least 2 hours.
Let's be honest. Mortal Kombat is not Shakespeare. Mortal Kombat is not some big, epic, sweeping drama where we've got to get into the meat of all the backstory of these important characters. This is a movie where a guy slices open another guy's arm, catches the blood from it, turns it into an ice spike with blood, and then stabs him to death with it. This ain't Shakespeare, nor is it supposed to be Shakespeare. It's going to be glorious. And, seriously, this seems like the type of movie that awesome. An hour and a half is perfect.
Yeah.
All killer, no filler, just boom, boom, boom. It understands what it is. It understands what it isn't. And listen, and you're right. I don't know that this is an hour and a half long. Like the Rotten Tomatoes listing may or may not be accurate. I can do a quick search here.
That was the best moment, by the way.
Mortal Kombat, IMDb 2021. I'm going to see if I can find the runtime here. I'm going to look up quickly. I don't see any listing for runtime. Nope, they don't have any runtime listing. But listen, hour and a half actually sounds perfect for a movie like this. It does. I don't expect anything else. Listen, the movie's going to start with the backstory of Sub-Zero and Scorpion. That's all the backstory we need. We don't need the backstory of Kano. We don't need Kano's backstory. Other than a quick, I grew up here and I did this. Now I'm Kano. Perfect. That's all the backstory we need in a Mortal Kombat movie. I think we're fine. I don't know. Did you have an expected length of this movie? How long you think this is going to be?
No. I just thought it was awesome because when you made me bleed my own blood. Oh. And then you stabbed me with my own blood. That's the first thing that came to mind.
That was, to me, that was the most
cold move.
Like the fire dragon, that was great. The Goro thing, that was great.
That looked good.
But cutting a man
with his own,
freezing his spilled blood and then stabbing him with his own blood.
Him, man, bring him low.
Come on,
stab him with his own blood.
Awesome. And it doesn't need to be 2 hours. I think it's going to be all pop power right in an hour and a half. But again, it might be, remember, it still could be 2 hours, but if it's an hour and a half, I'm not going to worry about it. All right, what's next?
Mumra, the ever-living, says, Hi, John. If Monica didn't make it out of the vehicle, what would it have been a fly situation? Half truck, half human.
Oh, like The Fly. I see what you're saying.
Oh. Also, have you seen the 80s high school bully film 3 O'Clock High? Overlooked movie from that time period. Spielberg was uncredited for it.
I don't recall the 3 O'Clock High thing, but going back to Monica, I don't know, because when other people go through, like when a truck goes through, it just transforms. When a person goes through, they transform. Monica went through, did not transform. Monica went through it. She came out the other side herself, still wearing her sword uniform, which, by the way, looked exactly like her Spectrum uniform in the comic books.
I was going to say.
And actually, Robert Meyer Burnett told me today he was able to order that sweater today from a Disney merchandiser of some sorts. So no, I think if she had stayed in the truck and it had gone through, first of all, the truck didn't make it through, so I don't know what would have happened to her. But if she was in the truck and the truck went through, I think she would just came out the other side the way she was. That's my guess. That's my theory right now. All right, what's next?
Sergeant Ward says, Gina Carano was just on the Ben Shapiro show. Did you watch it, and do you think this will affect Gina's chances of getting rehired by Disney? My neighbor is...
Oh, that's two separate questions.
What? I'm so sorry.
You know what? No, because that one didn't highlight its thing. Let's start with My Neighbor Mephisto.
Got it. My Neighbor Mephisto says, Hi, John and Co. This whole theorizing about Mephisto gives the character more hype if he ever debuts. Do you think that Feige would want to give hype to a character he doesn't plan to bring?
Let's be very clear. Kevin Feige hasn't given any hype to Mephisto. We have. Not once in this show have they mentioned Mephisto. Not once has the name been said. That has been all us. So if they use Mephisto, which, by the way, like after that I never thought Mephisto was in this show, but then that Yo Magic Shark, I think that put Nightmare and Mephisto very much on the table. I think a lot of things that we saw in Agatha's basement might hint towards Mephisto. I'm not saying that Mephisto is in this, but it is possible. But if it's not, then Kevin Feige gave no hype to Mephisto. Nobody in this show ever said Mephisto. So if there is any hype, that's just us, and you can't actually blame it on Kevin Feige. All right, now let's move up to that question that came in from Sergeant Ward that you already read. The Gina Carano thing, does this increase Gina Carano's chance of getting hired by Disney? No. Listen, this is just me and a personal choice. I don't watch Rachel Maddow. I don't watch Ben Shapiro. I don't need people who are so hardcore into their own political agenda that I can't take anything that they say seriously. So I am not into that at all. No, listen, you know me. The reason I think Disney isn't going to recast Cara Dune is because I believe, however unlikely it is, Disney likes to keep its options open. They brought back James Gunn. I think they're going to want to keep their options open. Not that they'll do it, but I think they want to keep their options open with Gina Carano. So I don't think anything they do, especially getting on something like the Ben Shapiro Show, who to me is no better than Rachel Maddow, I'm not, no, I have no interest. I don't care what, everything that there really is to be said about this situation has been said, and I'm kind of over and done with it. All right, what's next?
Vanessa G. Ramos says, hi, John and Sexy Rob.
Who's not here?
New fan, but asked my friend to send this in for me. OMG, when Agatha said to Wanda, oh, honey, you think you're the only one with magical powers here? It literally made me dripping wet. Catherine Hahn deserves an Emmy for this performance, right?
I don't know if listen, you know me and Catherine Hahn. I've talked about Catherine Hahn for years. Catherine Hahn can do no wrong, in my opinion. I mean, if the only thing she ever did was her relatively small role in Step Brothers, that's good enough for me. I love this woman. Her role in Parks and Rec, always hilarious in Park. She's great. I love her. Is this an Emmy performance? I'm not willing to go there. And by the way, that whole, when she says, oh, honey, you think you're the only magical person here? Listen, I'm still not sure that that's all real. I still think this is all Wanda moving the puppet strings, including on Agatha. I'm not convinced of that 100%, but I do love Catherine Hahn. I love this character, and I cannot wait to see episodes 8 and 9. And by the way, just in case you guys missed it, just want to remind you that on Thursday, on Thursday, we just started this week, but we do our WandaVision pregame show. So we do our spoiler discussion on Fridays of the episode that just happened. But on Thursday, before the episode happens, we do our pre-show where we just throw out all of our theories about what's going to happen tonight. We did it last week. It was a lot of fun. Make sure you guys join us this Thursday for that pregame show as well. Okay. With that down, what is next?
The Wakandan Forever says, woo, Wakanda is crazy going nuts. Dream match. The legit boss, Sasha Banks, and EST, the prettiest and strongest Bianca Belair, together in the ring. If I'm dreaming, please don't wake me up. Elimination Chamber tonight, John. You and Ann have WWE Network?
We do have WWE Network because Ann used to do a podcast with Kaori about wrestling, but I don't watch wrestling that much anymore. Like I watch WrestleMania, I'll watch SummerSlam, and I'll watch what's the one they just did? Not King of the Ring, but the elimination one. I can't remember the name of it now. The one where if you win, you get a shot at the champion. I know Sasha Banks. I don't know any of the other people you just mentioned. Like I'm older school wrestling. Like I watched it when I was a bit younger, but I really don't watch it very much today. But I know who Sasha Banks is. My wife loves her because she's married to a Filipino geek. So she loves that. Seriously, if you look at pictures of Sasha Banks' husband, you're like, how did that guy, it's like when people look at me at Ann, how did that guy end up with her? So it's like one of those situations, makes you real proud to be a geek, actually. But other than that, I don't know anybody else that we were just talking about. Wakanda, I just don't. All right, what's next?
Anonymous says, hey, John and Co. Was just rewatching Captain Marvel and it hit me. What happened to Talos' daughter? She developed a bond with Monica, right? What's the odds of her being the engineer or even Jude Law? LOL.
Well, no, it's not Jude Law. He's not a Skrull. He's Kree. But no, we were just talking about that same thing. I think that is one of the possibilities that military person was either a generic Skrull of some kind who knew her, or specifically Talos' daughter. I don't know, but that is one of the theories. All right, what's next?
Sam J says, hi, John. My theory on the engineer in WandaVision is Monica gets in touch with him or her, and they send down the rover thinking it'll get into the Hex. No problem. On hearing it doesn't, the engineer's interest is piqued, and they come down in person to see. I
think there is a reason why out of the three heroes who escaped the expanding hex, there were three heroes who escaped the expanding hex. Only two got out, but there were three originally in there. There was Monica, there was Jimmy, and there was Darcy. Darcy gets sucked into the hex, down. Monica goes back into the hex, down. Jimmy is still outside of the hex.
Yeah.
There's a reason he's still outside of the hex, and that is where I come to think that we are still going to get this engineer thing. It's got to be Jimmy out there to meet him and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know that for sure, Sam, but that's one of my reasons why I think that he is still out there, because I think he will meet the engineer. I'm not willing to bet any money on that, but that's kind of my theory right now. You're still not buying into it, though, are you?
By the way, I don't know much about Vegas betting at all. But I'm wondering, like, as Vegas is not like up and running and or whatever.
Oh, the sports books are all open.
Is there a WandaVision like betting ring out there? Because I want in.
Listen, the Vegas books, they have stuff on everything.
Do they have WandaVision?
You know what? I'll look it up. But
How many people lost money last week on the engineer?
I would not be surprised at all if there are betting lines on that. Not even a little bit. All right, what's next?
John Klobacher says, sorry, John, but mayo does not belong on hot dogs.
Listen, mayo belongs on everything. Mayo is the most glorious condiment that God ever put on his green earth. Mayo is life. Mayo is good. I have mayo with fries.
Is that a Canadian thing?
I think mayo is kind of a Canadian thing, but even in the if I'm in the absence of a good dipping sauce, like I generally don't use ketchup with fries, like a good honey mustard. Like last night, Ann and I ate at Islands, and they have a fabulous side of a honey mustard that comes along. So
I like their honey mustard, yeah.
Oh, great honey mustard. So I'll do that. But if I'm in the absence of anything else, I'll just get a little packet of mayo and just dip my fries in my mayo a little bit. When I was a kid, some of my viewers know this. True story. When I was a kid, there was a period of time where my favorite thing to eat, I would come home for lunch from school. I would crack open the cupboards. I'd pull out a loaf of bread. I'd bring out the butter, the peanut butter, and mayonnaise. And my favorite thing for a long time was peanut butter, and mayonnaise sandwiches. Now, are you all right? You're going to survive?
What? Yeah.
Yep. Peanut butter and mayonnaise sandwiches was my favorite for a while.
Dude.
Now, even I, as somebody who really appreciates mayonnaise, even I can't imagine eating that today. But matter of fact, I just made a delicious salami, cheese, turkey breast, and mayo sandwich. Of course, mayo goes in tuna. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Yeah, mayo on hot dogs. I absolutely put mayo on my hot dogs. That's right. Mayo and proud, my friends. Mayo and proud.
That's different.
Embrace it,
I'm not
Kimberly.
going to yuck on your yum, bro. I mean, look, when I was a kid, I'd come home and eat spoonsful of butter. So I'm not going to hate on that, but...
Peanut butter or butter?
Butter.
You know what that reminds me of?
Just butter.
You ever see the Parks and Rec episode where Andy is trying to figure out what his favorite food? I like buttered popcorn. I like buttered toast. Butter is my favorite food. And he realized it. That's what you just reminded me of. All right.
Yeah,
what's next?
Alex Phillips says, just brought the Lord of the Rings 4K HDR remastered box set.
Nice.
Watching it on a 4K OLED TV, and my God, it feels like I'm watching a new movie. I'm so glad this movie has stood the test of time over the last 20 plus years.
Okay, listen, the Lord of the Rings is, I mean, it almost goes without saying. They are absolute masterpieces. Every single one. Only the Godfather trilogy is the other trilogy. There's only two trilogies. Godfather trilogy, Lord of the Ring trilogy, where all three films of the trilogy were nominated for Best Picture. Godfather won it twice. Lord of the Rings won it once. But all three of the Lord of the Rings films deservedly so nominated, and no film in history has won more Academy Awards than Lord of the Rings Return of the King. It won 11. There are two other films that have won 11, but no other film in history has ever won more. It is a masterpiece by any stretch, and it holds up, brother. It absolutely holds up. So I'm glad you got to experience that. All right, what's next?
Chris West says, hello, John and crew. It's a known fact that Kevin Feige is a Star Trek fan.
Yes.
I couldn't help but to imagine what a Kevin Feige Star Trek film series would look like. Because of his forward thinking, he would have a 5-year roadmap. What are your thoughts?
Oh, yeah. Listen, Kevin Feige's a talented filmmaker. He understands setting up story and vision and shepherding things and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure he would do a very, very good job. Now, let's not just assume that because he did an amazing job on Marvel, that means he would automatically do an amazing job on anything. We know that's not necessarily true, but I think his chances would be good. Now, he's an even bigger Star Wars fan. Like, Star Wars is his ultimate love as a kid when he was growing up. And that's why so many of us are so excited about him shepherding a Star Wars film, which he is doing. He's going to be doing a Star Wars film. They announced that. And we're all very, very excited for it. But yeah, you put his hand just about anything, he'll do a good job with it. He's Kevin Feige. A good storyteller is a good storyteller. All right, what's next?
Jose Salazar says, "Good day, John. I think it's inevitable that the MCU movies will be delayed, shifting the entire slate once again. But do you think this would also affect the on-time release of the upcoming Disney Plus TV series?"
I'll tell you what, and maybe this is just me being a little bit overly optimistic right now, but I have been very, very closely monitoring the COVID outbreak cases in California every day. And for weeks now, they have been dropping every day. We went from a number of weeks ago from like 40,000+ new cases per day in California down to like 30,000 a day, down to 20, down to 10, down to 9, down to 8, down to 7. Yesterday, we were down to 6,000. Now, that's still 6,000 plus too many. Mm-hmm. But we see this trajectory. We are getting millions every day of people getting vaccinated, which is great. We have seen ever since we hit that big spike, where it's like, guys, we've hit 400,000 people dead. Yeah. We are literally having, like, just in California alone, 40,000 people a day are catching this thing. I think that really woke a lot of people up. Mm-hmm. And I think there was even some people who weren't taking it terribly seriously started taking it more seriously at that time. And I think it woke a lot of people up. And I've seen, like, I was just out at Victoria Gardens, which is a shopping center out near Rancho Cucamonga, California. It's a big outdoor shopping thing. And, I went to a place similar to that a couple months ago, and I had to stop going because, like, only 1 out of every 4 or 5 people were wearing a mask. I went to a new one. I went out there like yesterday, Ann and I went out, and maybe 1 out of every 10 people weren't wearing a mask. There's just a difference now. People seem to be taking it more seriously, and they're getting tested and they're getting vaccinations. And so call me overly optimistic. Yeah. I do think Black Widow, which is supposed to come out in April, soon. I do think early May. It's supposed to come out in early May. I do think early May is a bit too soon. I think it will get bumped, but I don't think it's going to be bumped by a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think the other Marvel movies aren't going to have to move at all. So we'll see if that's true or not. Mm-hmm. But we're seeing more and more things open. Indoor dining is now open in New York. They're getting close. The talk about reopening the movie theaters here is now like getting really close. The number of open beds in hospitals have greatly increased back to like tragic lows before. I think we're getting close. But I think we need just a little bit of time more. I think Black Widow moves, but not by much, and then everything else will stay in place. That's my guess right now. But maybe I'm being overly optimistic. All right, what's next?
Narf says, "It was Agatha all along. I wouldn't be surprised at this point if she started the whole coronavirus pandemic." Honey, I know that's right. "And the overabundance of snow across the U.S., especially hitting sunny Texas."
And listen, hey, seriously, like, I mean,
you, Agatha.
Laughter is the best thing in the world, but, and I love hearing people in Texas because I follow a number of podcasts and things like that, people making fun of their own situation. And that's how I deal with tragedy too. I laugh at it. I laugh, not because I'm gutsy, because that's just my dealing mechanism. Mm-hmm. That's how I deal. Mm-hmm. But in all seriousness, still big thoughts, prayers. People are cold. People are thirsty. It's just, again, I was so overwhelmed by the number of people who responded and said they did go ahead and made donations through Red Cross and others to help the people out in Texas. Please do your part as well. And if you are one of our fellow film and television loving brothers and sisters down in Texas, our thoughts go with you. We're trying to support the way we can, and hang in there, guys. And yeah, just hang in there. All right. Thanks for sending that in, Narf. All right. What's next?
Tony Rodriguez says, "We are together with this. The military lady was just the delivery person. I think it will get back to the engineer that the vehicle didn't make it in and come down to find out where they miscalculated. We could still see if he or she, if so, we'll see in episode 9.
I am completely with you on that, Tony. I only think it's a possibility. I wouldn't put money on that is the case, but I'm open to that as well. And that's why I think Jimmy is still out there. I don't think we've met them yet. I think we're going to see them. But I think if it's going to happen, I think it'll happen in episode 8. even though I still kind of think episode 8 is going to be a flashback episode of the events between Endgame and the beginning of WandaVision, but I don't know that. But I have a feeling if it's going to happen, they won't wait till 9. It'll happen in 8. We will see. But I'm with you on that, Tony. I really am. All right, what's next?
Also coming from Tony Rodriguez. Okay, so Agnes is the protagonist in WandaVision, period. There is no Mephisto/Nightmare. We won't see the true bad guy till the end of Spidey 3. The real one she worked for is Shumagora or Blackheart. And the book is the book of Shumagorath, not Darkhold.
It all depends on if they want to go. First of all, you know, the theory that I'm starting to buy into that somebody wrote in earlier. I'm starting to think that's not even really Agatha Harkness. I'm thinking Agatha Harkness is just a character that Wanda made up to be the villain of her WandaVision show. And this is all part of her narrative, so her and Vision can team up and battle this make-believe bad guy. That's why she got her own theme song. But if it is Agatha Harkness, if they wanted to follow in the comics, like they could go the whole route with her son. They could go into New Salem. They could move into all that kind of stuff. They could even move into her mentoring Wanda a little bit, which is kind of what they did in the comics. Maybe she's even the babysitter for the Fantastic Four, which is actually how Agatha Harkness was introduced in the comics. She was a babysitter of all things. But I do think that if they're going to say she is working for someone, if she is actually Agatha Harkness, which I'm not convinced of, but if she is, I am leaning more and more towards, there's another power behind it. Like, just what's in the book. Something is trapped in that book. They need to feed on Wanda's magic for a purpose and for a reason. So what that is, or who that is, we will find out soon enough. All right, what's next?
Murray Reich says, hey, John, what if the big cameo in episode 9 is really Guillermo from What We Do in the Shadows? That would be hilarious. He's another potential besides for Sam and Dean, which would also be awesome. But I know that's not going to happen. Maybe a YouTube vid.
First of all, What We Do in the Shadows is one of the best shows on TV right now. And Guillermo is like the heartbeat of that show. I love the Guillermo character. I love what they're doing with Guillermo. I mean, again, if it's the nexus of realities, anything's possible. Hell, even Sam and Dean Winchester. I've been watching, or I did until the series ended just recently, Supernatural for so long. But oh my God, Murray, if Guillermo showed up, I would be so freaking happy. And he comes in and he stabs Agatha, I'd be all for that. Do you watch What We Do in the Shadows yet?
No, it's on my list, but it's very top on my list. And
so
after
good.
I saw We Are the Wilder People, or
the Wilder
Hunt
People?
for the Wilder People.
Hunt for the Wilder People.
It went higher on my list. I've been meaning to get
So
to it.
you got to watch, number one, you've got to watch the movie What We Do in the Shadows first.
Okay.
And then watch the show. But the show is fabulous.
Yeah.
I love this show. It's so good. And Guillermo is one of the reasons why it is so good.
I have to check that out.
All right, what's next?
James Germain says, hey, John, have you seen the trailer for the Invincible series with J.K. Simmons? It's my favorite comic. It takes the superhero trope, flips it upside down. P.S. Unpopular opinion, I love Kevin Costner's Robin Hood. I'm going to cut your heart with a spoon. Pitter patter.
Listen, you don't have to convince me. I love that Robin Hood movie. I love it. With the great song by great Canadian, of course, Everything I Do, Bryan Adams, the great Canadian kid. I do it for you. Anyway, I love that movie. Yes, Kevin Costner's accent comes in and out like the tide in that movie. Absolutely. But I love that. And yes, the Sheriff of Nottingham is one of the greatest cinematic villains of all time. And yeah, the trailer was interesting. I didn't think it was great, but it is interesting. I am going to check it out when it does come out. And no, not an unpopular opinion. That Kevin Costner Robin Hood movie is all kinds of awesome. I love it. All right, I make no apologies for that. All right, what's next?
Jesse says, the Russo bros recently on the Lights Camera Barstool podcast somewhat confirmed my Captain America alternate timeline theory I wrote in about a few days ago. According to the pair, Cap did live out his days with Peggy in an alternate branch reality before traveling back to the main reality to hand over the shield. However, Marcus and McFeely, the writers, are firmly in the camp that old Cap exists in the MCU timeline and was at Peggy's funeral. Is it weird that the writers and directors are on such different pages? And what side do you tend to believe?
I tend to go with the guys who actually wrote it. They wrote it. They knew what was in their minds. Listen, I think what the Russo, and I love the Russo brothers. You know I love the Russo brothers. But they did what most all directors do, right? When there's a perceived inconsistency in the movie, they come up with a way to cover that inconsistency. That's what they do. But the writers, like, they were just like, yeah, man, we just had inconsistencies. I mean, we had some logic. It is what it is. It's refreshingly honest. So I tend, even though I adore the Russos, they are the directors, I tend to listen more to the guys who actually wrote it. And I go with them on it. I mean, it's a very good explanation that the Russos give. But the guys who wrote it knowing, yeah, this is how they intended it. So hey, listen, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because the movie was super awesome and really great fun. It didn't really matter, but I kind of side with the writers on this one. All right, what's next?
Grandmaster Joseph says, hey, John, it's still possible to introduce Reed Richards in WandaVision as a solo character, then eventually aspects of the Fantastic Four in the MCU before introducing them as a group, like they did with the Avengers.
No. That would be a horrible mistake. That would be like an Unto having a Star-Lord movie and then having a Drax the Destroyer movie and then having a Gamora movie and then having a Rocket and then having a Groot movie and then have them all come together. No. The Guardians of the Galaxy come out as Guardians of the Galaxy. The Fantastic Four come out as the Fantastic Four. That doesn't mean you can't, drop a hint of them in WandaVision, having Reed Richards show up as the engineer. I mean, I've never been willing to put money on that, but that's a possibility. You get a lot of people excited, but still, you could do something like that. But this whole thing of let's give Sue her kind of own story, and let's give Ben kind of his own story, and then give Johnny his own story, and then this formula that the first Avengers did is great, but it's not the only formula. It's not the only thing you can do. So I think with Fantastic Four that are identified as the group, I think that's the way you do it. So I don't think they should do it that way, Grandmaster. That's just my opinion on it, though. This is just my opinion. All right, what's next?
At Carstu Instagram says, at K-Star-Sue Instagram. I want to get it right for you. Predictions, the rabbit is Doctor Strange. Engineers Reed Richards. Krasinski. Mephisto is main villain. Pietro is from Fox Universe. How would he have his abilities of speed in Halloween episode? The director is Ultron. I will be 6 for 6 like Jordan.
Well, listen, when you're talking about being in the hex, anything is possible, especially if one is doing all this. Like this whole thing about, but he has super speed. That means it's written. No, it doesn't. I mean, this is the hex. We have no idea how things work in the hex. We saw a military helicopter go through the walls and it became a hot air balloon. Yeah, I mean, so it is what it is. So I don't think Pietro, by the way, if they didn't show Pietro having a super speed, I wouldn't think that's proof that he wasn't Pietro. I would say, listen, it's the hex. Who knows what's going on inside of it? But him showing super speed, I don't think that proves anything either. So I don't think the lack of speed proves anything. I don't think having speed proves anything. There is that. Reed Richards, Krasinski, it's unlikely, but I do think it's one of the possibilities. Mephisto is the main villain. I've been warming up to that. And the director is Ultron. No, I don't buy that one at all. I'm not in that one camp at all. But with like most of us, K-Star, like most of us, you're going to end up having some of your theories validated and some of them ripped up and destroyed. Just like me, just like everybody else. So we'll come to that. But you got some interesting ones. Let's keep our eyes on them. All right, what's next? Darna
says, has Anne ever talked to you about comic book superheroes from the Philippines? Any thoughts? Thanks. Keep safe.
Little known fact. So Anne is, 100 pounds of Filipino fury, but Anne was not from the Philippines. Anne's parents are from the Philippines. Both of Anne's siblings were born in the Philippines, but Anne herself was actually born in Hollywood. And she grew up here in the United States. Actually, she was here in the United States. She was then sent back to the Philippines for a while to live with her grandfather, who was on the Supreme Court of the Philippines. Her Anne's godmother was Marcos, the president of the Philippines. Yeah, Anne's godmother was the president of the Philippines. I know.
Whoa.
Right? Yeah. Anne's uncle is a governor in the Philippines. Her aunt is a senator, if I'm remembering that right. But and there's like parks and schools named after her grandfather and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, her family's a big deal in the Philippines.
She's a celeb.
It's funny because my brother-in-law, Stan, who is married to Anne's sister, Stan is also Canadian.
Oh my God.
is also a Canadian Star Wars nerd. Except Stan is like 6'9", 6'10". And you've met Anne.
Yes.
Anne's not abundant with height. I'll say that. Anne is Anne's shorter. She's not tiny, but she's shorter.
Yeah.
Anne's sister Olive is shorter than Anne is. And her husband is 6'9".
How cute.
Like a 6'9" bodybuilder. And yeah, I mean, it is like, I look
This family just gets more amazing.
It's weird, but
like, by the second.
He and I were talking. It's like, he's like, John, my brother-in-law Stan's like, you got to go to the Philippines, man. You get there, you get treated like royal. You have a 24/7 driver. You have all this kind of stuff because of the family, right? So I've never been to the Philippines, but I got to go there sometime. So anyway, all that is to say,
oh my God,
that
so amazing.
Anne didn't grow up reading Filipino comics or anything like that. There is, however, a relatively new, I remember reading about this. There's a female superhero now, a Filipino female superhero. I remember reading about it. I can't remember her name, but yeah, there's that one. Okay, what is next?
Movie Idiot says, John, the objective measure of movies is the tomato meter on Rotten Tomatoes. Also, verified audience score is a measurement as well.
No, it is not.
And would count as objective measurement.
No, it is not.
It may be a measurement of subjective opinion, but it is objective measurement.
No, that is incorrect. That is incorrect. Any measurement based on subjective opinion is in and of itself subjective. Now, what you can say objectively that if you go and look it up, that you can say the Rotten Tomatoes score of this movie is 63%. That in and of itself is an objective truth. But in and of itself, it is not then an objective reflection on the objective quality of a piece of art or film. Not at all. Because that in and of itself is a number based on subjective opinions. Something based on subjective opinions does not become objective truth. The only thing that is objective truth is empirically measurable, scientifically verifiable data that cannot be, that is not subject to opinion. Whenever an opinion comes into it, it is no longer objective truth. That's why, like in the Olympics, the guy who wins the 100-meter men's dash, that's not up to opinion. There ain't no judge in that. Who crosses the finish line first? That's it. It's just objective truth. Who was the best synchronized swimmer? That's a little bit more iffy because that has to go to judges. Somebody will win the gold medal and you say they won the gold medal, but were they the best? That comes up to anything that's opinion-based is not objective truth. By the way, I'm not telling you something that's just some wild idea. This is by definition. This is the definition. When you want to see what is subjective versus what is objective, art is subjective, period. Any denial of it is just folly. All right, what's next?
Murray Reich says, that Agatha All Along song is still stuck in my head.
No kidding.
It's so catchy. By the way, I wouldn't mind a few extra more episodes as I don't want it to end. That's how good this show is. Snoopers going Snoop. Hashtag justice for Sparky, not Han.
I'll tell you what, though. Like, I see what you're saying because I don't want this show to end either. But here's the greatness of 2021 Disney Plus as opposed to 2020 Disney Plus. 2020 Disney Plus is, yay, everybody, first episode of, it started in 2019, but it was a 2020 show essentially. Yeah, everybody, we got one season of Mandalorian. And then it ended, and then we ain't got shit for another year. This, WandaVision ends, we get a week of a behind-the-scenes documentary, and then Falcon and Winter Soldier starts. That's the glory of 2021 Disney Plus as opposed to the crappy 2020 Disney Plus. So yeah, it is sad that it's going to end, but it's overjoyous that Falcon and Winter Soldier then starts. And then we get to do it all over again, whether it's with Loki or the Hawkeye series or all the others that are coming. It's good times rolling, man. It's good times rolling. All right, what's next?
Anonymous says, hi, John and Rob. While we all know that MCU is heading for multiverse with enough hints, they still didn't go there yet. I'm not familiar with the comics, so I worry about things becoming complicated. IMO, the next 2 episodes of WandaVision, is crucial for the MCU future.
The absolute strongest part of Kevin Feige and the secret to the MCU continuing to grow in its audience and its popularity is the single greatest thing Kevin Feige has done. He makes sure that wherever you are on the scale, Whether you are a hardcore lifetime comic book fan or somebody who's never picked up a comic book or seen a single MCU thing, when you tune in or buy a ticket to go to an MCU movie or tune into an MCU show, Kevin Feige will make sure you are not lost. That's just the key of it. Now, I've got a friend of mine who had a few questions about WandaVision because he's literally never watched another MCU thing. Hey, Mac. He literally has never watched an MCU thing. And so he's trying to watch WandaVision. He had a few questions at first, but after getting the basic questions answered, like 2 or 3 very simple basic questions, he was able to pick up, okay, I understand what's going on here. And then he's able to jump right in. I had somebody who had, like, friends of mine, we talked about this before, who had never seen a single one of the MCU movies, and the first one they started to watch was Infinity War. Now, was there a lot of nuance?
It's an interesting place to jump in.
Yeah. Was there nuance that they missed? Yeah. Was there some significance of things missed? Yeah. But were they able to follow the story and basically understand what was happening? Absolutely. Okay, so that's Thor. He's a hero. They didn't know why they were on that Thor ship to begin with, but okay, clearly this Thanos is the big bad guy. Okay, he wants to wipe out half the universe. Earth's heroes want to stop it. Apparently, these two heroes, Iron Man and Captain America, weren't getting along for some reason. Never saw a Civil War, but okay, they weren't getting along for a bit, but they got it. Thanos wants to destroy half the life in the universe. These heroes need to stop him. There's some background drama. They cleared it. But that's the brilliance of Kevin Feige. He has made sure over 20 plus films now an MCU series in
So
12
incredible.
plus years, that a new person who has still never seen a thing can jump in and watch it. And that's how the MCU keeps growing. The moment the MCU gets to a point where it's like, oh yeah, noob, if you don't go back and watch these 25 hours of material,
Yeah.
you'll never get it. The moment they do that is when the MCU starts to die. And he will take care of it. He will take care of it. Don't worry. He will make sure it does not get overly complicated, because that has been the hallmark of his success. Great question. All right. What's next?
Steve Hunt says, greetings and salutations, John Campea and Robert Meyer Burnett from the UK.
Greetings, Steve.
Been watching you since Collider and AMC days. Love the show. Just wanted to say thank you for your content and also say how much I think John Schnepp would have been an amazing trio with you guys.
Well,
Hashtag
listen.
miss.
Yeah, listen. Of course, the very first, the way I met Robert Meyer Burnett was through John Schnepp. You know, I had created this show called Heroes, and even though he was nervous to do it, I appointed Schnepp to run it. I had all the faith in the world with him he should run it. He wanted me to run it, and I'm like, nope, this is your time. This is your show. You're the comic sweaty. I mean, you get in there and you run this thing. And I gave him carte blanche to like bring on guests and whatever, and he brought in a friend of his named Robert Meyer Burnett. And so Heroes for a while was me, Schnepp, and Robert Meyer Burnett. Those were fun times. And Robert and I have been friends ever since. And it is one of the things that I love the most about my career was that I got to be the one to introduce the online film fan community to John Schnepp, and working with him, and the years that we worked together and the shows I got to do with him were always great. And thanks to him, I met Robert, and yeah, it was a really fun trio to be a part of. Thanks for sending that in, man. I appreciate that. Okay, what's next?
James Rogerson says, I just wanted to say thank you for putting Booksmart on my radar.
Nice.
I checked it out last night and it instantly became one of my all-time favorites. Such a simple premise executed so well with 2 great leads. I can't wait to see what Wilde does next.
Yeah, of course, and Olivia Wilde is making a new movie right now. Of course, all the headlines with the fact that she fired you-know-who off of her movie. But, Shia was on the movie and then she kicked his ass out. Anyway, I was floored by Booksmart. It's one I went to go watch just because I knew I had to review it, and walked out in love. Like, sometimes you see a movie that renews your love for the movies. And to me, this was a better version of Superbad. Like, it's also not coincidental. I don't know. Did you see Booksmart? Love it. Did you know when you saw it that the lead girl is
Beanie Feldstein?
Yes, that she is
Jonah Hill's
sister. Yeah. Did you know I didn't know that when I saw it.
Yeah.
When I watched it, it wasn't until afterwards that I realized it, which is ironic because
When I found out, I was like, oh my gosh, but I knew before the movie. But when I found out, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so perfect.
it is. Oh, and by the way, she's in a couple of episodes of What We Do in the Shadows. She's in a couple of episodes of What We Do in the Shadows.
Now it's going this high.
But I mean, it's funny because, the movie often gets compared to Superbad, and her brother is in that. But
Yeah.
I actually think, and I'm a big fan of Superbad, but I think Booksmart is a better version of Superbad. I was floored by Olivia Wilde. It breaks my heart a little bit that her and what was her husband's name, who's in
Sudeikis,
it? Jason Sudeikis, who is so good in Ted Lasso. That show is so great. If you haven't watched Ted Lasso,
Is that where he's the coach?
Yes.
Oh, I've seen like one episode. I need to check out more.
What the first episode for me was like, okay, that was interesting. We'll watch more. By the end of it, you're in love with this show.
I'm always seeing him doing the Running Man like on Saturday night.
It's so good. But like Olivia Wilde and him, they were like my favorite, one of my top 2 or 3 favorite couples in Hollywood for a long. I was so heartbroken to find out they split. But
Yeah.
Booksmart is so great. I'm glad you checked it out, James, because it is wonderful. I'm glad you checked it out. All right, what's next?
Alan Dale says, Snoopers gon' snoop. Could be singular or plural. Peter could have either caught Monica or been teaming up together to snoop about. I need to put on the subtitles and check for the position of the apostrophe if there is one. Your thoughts?
I don't think there was an apostrophe, but listen, that ending, it very well could be that he's showing up to work with her. Some people theorize he's actually working with Agnes or Agatha, as we're calling her, and is there to catch her. I don't know. It could go either way. We will find out. Both things are there, but Snooper's going to snoop. It was such a great way to end that thing. And like she was shocked and all that kind of stuff. I thought it was a really nice ending for that. Nice. And finally, Alan, we got a post-credit scene. We had been waiting all the episodes. So I don't know what you think about this, Kimberly, but what I said was, I believe now we are going to get a post-credit scene for each of the last 2. I think now that they've broken the seal, and we finally got one, I think episode 8 will have a post-credit scene. I think the finale will have a post-credit. I don't know. Where are you on that? What do you think?
I agree. But I'm glad they didn't do post-credit on every episode because we're already going crazy with theories. It would have just been overload. But what's really not going to bother people, but when Infinity War ended and we were like, I got to wait a year to find out what happened. The thing that we all want is a post-credit scene at the last episode, but you're going to be going crazy because you're going to have to wait a while. I think we're going to have to wait like a year at least to see what it means, what the post-credit scene in this one means. I think that it's going to be just like Infinity where you're like, but I want to know now.
Unless what Marvel has done before is they have done 1 or 2 post-credit scenes that had nothing to do with the movie that just ended, but rather was a post-credit scene to set up. So it could be a Falcon and Winter Soldier post-credit scene, for all we know.
That's true. That's true.
Snooper's going to snoop. Don't know.
Hey,
we'll find out.
Snoop.
All right, what's next?
Great Grabthar's Hammer says Thor, Love and Thunder, Mortal Kombat, and the Baz Luhrmann Elvis biopic. It's all happening here in Australia, from the Matrix trilogy to the Star Wars prequels. Superman Returns to Hacksaw Ridge. What's the appeal to filming in the country I call home?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of things. One, just the natural landscape of it. But the main thing probably is, and I'm only guessing here, but is why do a lot of films film in Atlanta? Why is Atlanta becoming such a hot spot for people to film things? Why was Louisiana becoming a big spot for people to go and film things? Tax credits. Mm-hmm. Tax credits. A lot of states and countries, this is why a lot of stuff shoots in Canada as well. A lot of these places will set up very lucrative tax credits and to lure companies in to shoot their stuff there. And between probably skilled labor being there, a lot of natural environments, and probably very healthy tax credits, I'm going to guess all of that plays into that. And I think you're going to see that in a few other countries really become growing hotspots for the film industry. All right, what's next?
Agent Cajun says, hi, John. In 1957, I got my first comics at a 3-pack containing Adventure Comics number 18, Martha Wayne, and Honeymooners number 3. Enough nostalgia.
Wow.
I think Captain Marvel will show up in WandaVision to help Lieutenant Trouble. I think the Skywalker event is Mark Hamill as Nightmare, serious about CM.
Captain Marvel. Well, listen, I've said right from the beginning, once Monica shows up and once Monica becomes a player in here, there is a clear, obvious connection to Captain Marvel. She knew Captain Marvel from a kid. Captain Marvel was her mother's best friend. There's a clear connection there. They also, by the way, as Monica was going through the field, she heard lines from Captain Marvel in her head from the Captain Marvel movie, right? So it would completely be logical. Now, I'm not saying Captain Marvel will show up, but her showing up would be completely logical from what we've seen in the series so far. Do I think she will? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know, but it is totally, totally feasible that they do that because, again, there's that character connection. And I think Monica is going to be playing a role in Captain Marvel too, so maybe they can start laying the groundwork for that right now and tell us, at least give us some indication why the hell Monica bristles at the name of Captain Marvel right now when clearly she's basically her aunt. So I don't know. We'll see where they go with that. All right, what's next?
Ryan Launer says, 18 Muppet Show episodes have unskippable content warnings, encouraging people how to have discussions with their kids about how the material was wrong then and wrong now. I agree with this, and it's infinitely preferable to leaving the episode out.
Is there a 2 of 2?
There is. All right. But boy, can you imagine the Disney employees who had to get the job of combing through every episode looking for stuff to narc on?
Listen, I really do prefer the modern take that, Warner Brothers did this too. And I'm trying, was it Gone with the Wind that they did this with? Anyway, I much prefer the modern thing of, listen, we have had different eras in our culture. We as a society grow and develop and evolve and learn and then do it all again. We grow, develop, evolve, and learn, grow, develop, evolve, and learn. Some things we grow and develop and evolve and learn faster on than others. But I much prefer this approach of saying, look, we acknowledge today, having the moral compass that we have now, having the understanding of things we have now, that maybe things that were as a society weren't looked negatively on, that now we're like, what the hell were you thinking at the time? Instead of pulling it off the shelf entirely, put in a thing at the beginning saying, yeah, this was kind of reflective of the way a society saw certain things at the time. And we understand that that's not cool. But at the time, we just weren't at that. I guess we as a society weren't at that play yet. Look, I just think it's a much, much better approach. I think it encourages discussion. And listen, people who forget about the past are doomed to repeat it. So I think it's good to keep that stuff in. Depending, there's certain things that cross the line that I think should just be eradicated from history. But for the most part, things like that, I think it's much better to put on those warnings than to take it out entirely. Like I remember the Gone with the Wind thing was a big situation that started a lot of conversations. So. I think they even pulled it down for a minute and they said, we will put this back up just as they formulated the warning at the front and then put it up. It's a one that a lot of people have a lot of opinions on. And when I saw that they were doing it for the Muppet Show, I thought the Muppet Show, and then I thought about it. I'm like, probably. I don't know. What's your take on that?
I totally prefer that as one that has little ones in my life. Again, not my kids, but I'm an auntie of many nieces and nephews. It's helpful because there are those teachable moments where your kids get to that age where you go, you know what? I like that they did this because you see, I ran into this weekend with my nephew. A kid made a joke that I was like, ooh, he may not know that that's an issue, but you get to have a teachable moment and go. And as a parent or caregiver, you get to be like, oh, look, a warning. Oh, thank God. Okay. All right. I'm either going to fast forward through this part or I'm going to pause it and say, remember the thing we saw at the beginning? Well, let me explain something to you. The way people used to think, blah, 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 blah. It's much better to have the opportunity to educate and have teachable moments with your kids than to let's just pretend like nothing ever happened.
Right. Completely.
Yeah, I appreciate it and I respect it a lot.
I completely agree. All right, we got a few minutes left here. Let's get a couple more.
Power says, so Monica is either super lucky, suicidal, or somehow knows she's a main character on a Disney Plus show. Because me and Agent Wu are convinced at this point that she failed Science 101.
Yeah. Yeah. Because listen, I'm sorry. When a scientist is telling you, yeah, going through that thing is dangerous and it's affecting you like radiation, it's affecting you on a cellular level. Then saying, look, this is a bad idea. But she had this, look, what we call the heroes, when it works, we say she had a hunch. But take that out of it, we just know she's stupid. She's just stupid. You know, it's like, oh, that thing just
1
threw
plus
away this
1
car.
equals
I'm going to
11.
go running through it. But she had a hunch. It's that heroic. She had that sense. She just knew that she was going to be able to get through. No, really, she failed Science 101.
Wouldn't that be crazy if she just fell apart?
I think I
And then
told
that's
this
the end of
before.
her character. They told her not to do it.
Da-da-da-da-da-da. But I remember there was, I think it was Family Guy. I can't remember if we talked about this before. But there was this Family Guy where they did a cutaway scene of, man, it reminds me of that one time so-and-so tried to get superpowers. And it shows this kid seeing toxic sludge. It's like, this is how characters get superpowers. And he eats some toxic sludge and it quickly cuts to him being in a doctor's office. The doctor goes, Billy, you have cancer. And it's like, it's like, yeah, these bad things happening to you.
I can't walk through walls.
Yes, I mean,
No,
you're just
you
going to
can't.
die from doing it. Failed Science 101, completely agree. All right, what's next?
Jesse says, after episode 7, I'm having a similar fear as you, John. Something about that conversation Monica had with Wanda got me really paranoid that this show will end with Wanda being redeemed. Now they also have Agatha they can use as a scapegoat to clear Wanda's name.
See, I agree. That's been my fear, that they're going to go from something so sharp and unique and fresh and make it formulaic, cookie cutter, run-of-the-mill superhero ending. But if the theory that I've been starting to buy into has any validity, and Agnes is just Wanda's character, that she's just another one of Wanda's characters. She's the villain of the WandaVision show. And Wanda and Vision are going to team up to beat her at the end. And that ultimately means Wanda is still behind all this. And the illusion will come crashing down. And when it does, she's going to be very, very broken. So I don't know. We will see, Jesse. We'll see if we're worrying for nothing or if we got something to worry about. But either way, Kevin Feige will make it work. All right, what's next?
Special K says, John, I figured it out. Agatha's book is the Necronomicon Ex Mortis. So
From Ash and the Evil Dead.
expect Ash with chainsaw and shotgun to show up in the next episode to save Wanda. I know it won't happen, but how funny would that be?
Look, Sam Raimi, director of those films, is now directing Doctor Strange 2. We are saying that they are hinting, at least, that the nexus of all realities is there. And I wasn't kidding before when I said, if the nexus of all realities, which is a gateway to all realities and all iterations of those realities, all in one place and doorway, literally Darth Vader walking into the room is not outside of the realm of possibility. It's not what they'll do, but I'm just saying narratively it could, because all realities can come through the nexus. Ash, Necronomicon, it's all on the table, man. I'm with you, Special K. I don't think they're actually going to do it, but it wouldn't be contrary to the story if they decided to go that route, which I don't really think they are. All right, let's do one more and we'll call it a day. What's next?
This is coming from Irrelevant. Sir John the Campion, greetings. The answer has been in front of us the entire time. I'm now looking for a pair of sneakers to walk out from behind one of the pillars in Agatha's dungeon, and as the camera pans up, revealing khakis and a windbreaker, we are shown the true villain of WandaVision, Jimmy freaking Woo, aka Ralph, who was perfectly and patiently waiting outside of Westview when Monica first showed up. Why haven't we seen Ralph in the Hex? Because he is not in the Hex, guys. Hold on. While Agatha keeps an eye on things inside the Hex, Jimmy Woo has placed that innocent face of his into the thick of the operation outside. Ever since he was shown the card trick, he has become obsessed with magic and must have more.
Oh my.
I mean, he said that he was a youth pastor. What better alibi for the devil himself? The glorious twist no one saw coming. Jimmy Woo is Mephisto. I don't think this is true, but I would be disappointed if it's not going to happen. I'm sorry, that's hilarious.
That ain't the dumbest thing I've heard all day. Okay, think about this for a second. Think about it.
You got me rolling.
Think about it. If all of a sudden, hey, yeah, so
Magic.
I'm the devil. I mean, if Jimmy Woo, if they turn out that Randall Park and Jimmy Woo this whole time has been the mastermind behind it all, it was Jimmy all along, and it was actually him
That would
doing
be
all
so
that,
freaking
pulling
awesome.
out his Mephisto card, Here you go. By the way, I slapped on Ant-Man and Wasp the other day just for fun, and we watched again when Paul Rudd was showing him the trick. So funny. Oh, hey, listen. I am telling you what, Irrelevant. I'm not going to throw that theory out in the garbage. I'm not throwing that out in the garbage. That's brilliant. Nobody would see it coming. If they turn out that Jimmy Woo is actually Mephisto, people will freak out. And any theory that, and you're right. I said before, what did I say before? I said, there's a reason Jimmy's still outside the hex. I think it's to meet the engineer.
That would be, so I love the description of like you panning up, you see the sneakers, the windbreaker. Oh my, if that happens, I will throw my phone at the TV.
And of course, doing some of his Always Be My Maybe rap battle stuff and whatever. I am telling you what, it is not the craziest theory I've heard today.
I like it.
I like hilarious. It too. And anyway, guys, with that, we will put an end to this particular show. Now, listen, there are still more questions to come, like from Anthony M.R., Jonathan, James Lockman, and on. Do not worry, guys. We will start the John Campea Show tomorrow. When we get to the live questions part of the show tomorrow, we will start with yours and we'll pick up from there, and we will get ourselves all caught up. So, guys, thank you for checking out this episode of the companion videos. Always good that you guys come along and spend some time with us. Special thank you to all you guys who sent in those questions because, number one, you gave us great fun things to talk about, but number two, you supported this channel as you did it, and all of us involved with the John Campea YouTube channel, thank you guys very, very much for that. I also want to thank Kimberly Curran for being here. Kimberly, always
happy to be back.
A sunshiny day when you're here. Thanks for being here. Where can people follow you online if they want to?
I'm on Instagram at wasgoodkimberly, Kimberly.
And always good to have you here, and we'll see you again soon. And of course, you guys can follow me on my social media outlets, Instagram and whatever, simply at John Campea. All right, guys, remember, do the four main things. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. That'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.